Welcome everybody to the Keys to Wisdom channel. Here this morning I want to do a little talk and a little bit of data comparison for both of Joe Biden's wars. I'm going to compare Joe Biden's war in Ukraine because Joe Biden is the only reason the war in Ukraine is going on. And I also want to talk about and compare it to Joe Biden's war in America. And I'm going to give the different stats that are happening in both of Joe Biden's wars. The war on America, the USA, and the war in Ukraine. So at this point, since February 24th of 2022, there's about 500,000, 600,000 Russian military people involved in Ukraine. And at this point right now, all of them are in Russia. None of them are in Ukraine. They are in parts of what used to be Ukraine, but are now and forever Russia. The Donetsk Oblast is Russia. The Luhansk Oblast, or Lugansk, however you pronounce it, right, is Russia. Crimea is all Russia. The Kherson Oblast is Russia. The Zaporozhye Oblast is Russia. None of it is Ukraine. So really, at this point right now, there are 0 Russians invading or occupying a single bit of Ukraine. None. But if you want to consider those lands that will never, ever, ever again be part of Ukraine to still be Ukraine, right? You got 500,000-600,000 invaders or occupying Russian forces in Ukraine, in Joe Biden's war in Ukraine. And this is such a big issue that we're sending billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in assistance and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in weapons to Ukraine to try to defend the integrity of their border and to repel the so-called invaders who are actually liberators of all of those oblasts. And the vast majority of them have never been part of Ukraine and never been under the control of Ukraine since the 2014 coup, which was again Barack Obama and Joe Biden's coup. The government of Ukraine has been illegitimate ever since 2014, and that continues to the current Zelensky regime. They do not have any legitimacy, just like all of the maps that call Ukraine what it used to be have no legitimacy. It's all Russia now. It's going to all be Russia. Right? It's not going back. But now let's look at Joe Biden's war on America. Since Joe Biden took office, there's been over 5.5 million criminal aliens invading the United States of America. I consider this to be a proxy army of Joe Biden because Joe Biden has done absolutely nothing except encourage them and also destroy the rule of law, that each and every one of those criminals are breaking laws on the book, coming here illegally, right? By he's continuing to try to reward those criminals and saying the plan is to grant amnesty for their crimes and in the future to make them citizens. And he's also spending billions and billions of dollars on assisting all of these criminals that he is recruiting in his proxy army to march on the United States of America. Now, in 2022 alone, over 2.76 million criminal aliens were recruited by Joe Biden to march on America to commit the original crime that every single one of them, all 2.76 million, committed a crime, illegally coming here. And then they're also committing a ton of other crimes and actually killing hundreds of thousands of Americans directly. And then there's all the other indirect suffering and deaths caused to actual American citizens because all of their services and everything used to help take care of actual American citizens is being squandered and wasted upon the proxy army of criminal aliens that Joe Biden has imported. Right? So it's 2.76 million criminal aliens, and these are criminal aliens of all kinds. They're Mexicans, Haitians, Chinese, Middle East jihadists, you name it, every single type of criminal from everywhere in the world with all of their different reasons to come here, right, are in that pack of the 2.76 million invaders, criminal invaders in the United States of America just in 2022. In the 2 years of the Biden regime, over 5.5 million of those criminal aliens are here, and they join the other millions. So we're somewhere at the point right now of having 14, 15 million or so criminal aliens illegally occupying the United States of America and killing tons of them. Right? This traffic that's coming over these borders illegally, these criminals, that's where the vast majority of the most dangerous drug in the history of the world, fentanyl, is getting brought in with those mules. Joe Biden's proxy army of criminal aliens are muling in fentanyl like crazy. There's been over 200,000 United States citizens to have died from the overdose of fentanyl, which most of them, not maybe not most, but a whole lot of them were never even intending to take fentanyl whatsoever. They're intending to take a pain pill or uh, different types of other drugs that are nowhere near as dangerous as fentanyl, but because Joe Biden's proxy army of criminal aliens are bringing in this fentanyl all over the place, all of our cities. There's fake pills going around, just like the fake pills that were found in that squad car with George Floyd's saliva all over them, right? George Floyd, that fentanyl that was in George Floyd's system, and it's a controversial thing, but at least a contributing factor to his death, that fentanyl, right, was fake Percocet pills. They say that they were Percocet, but they were actually made out of fentanyl, right? And that's killing people all over the place. Bobby Brown's son, Whitney Houston, and Bobby Brown's son died over the same shit, right? Picking up these fake painkillers that are actually fentanyl and killing them. So we've had 200,000 United States casualties from this invasion, right? Over 200,000 United States citizens killed directly by Joe Biden's proxy army of criminal aliens. So those 5.5 million criminal aliens coming in over the border illegally in Joe Biden's time have killed over 200,000 Americans. If you look at the Ukrainian official claims, and right, everything that Ukraine says and does is got to be taken with a grain of salt because they are the most corrupt nation on earth, only rivaled by Joe Biden and the United States of America regime under Joe Biden. Nobody else on earth comes close to being as corrupt as these Ukrainians, but they'll claim that they've taken less than 20,000 casualties. So there's five to 600,000 Russian troops. Ukraine is claiming officially, which is 100% hog shit, right, that they've had less than 20,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed, right? It's way over 10, it's 10 to 20 times that amount. But their official claims, right, are less than 20,000 killed. America has got over 200,000 killed by fentanyl in the proxy army of criminal aliens, the illegal occupiers of America. Right? Here, we want to keep sending billions and billions of dollars and saying that the borders of Ukraine must be respected. Well, the borders of the United States, in the interests of the United States citizens, are not respected whatsoever, right? They're intentionally sabotaged, right? This is an intentional release of all of these criminals. 5.5 million criminals cannot invade the United States of America unless the government is so corrupt and encouraging them that and facilitating it to happen, right? All the government would have to do is make one choice to end it, right? And say everybody is getting returned. All who break the law is getting shipped back, or we are going to start shooting people on the spot. You illegally cross our border and threaten our citizens, right? And violate the sovereignty of the USA, right? There's a ton of different ways that they could do it, right? To end it, right? And having a president and a terrorist organization like the Democrat Party trying to constantly call for amnesty and to reward criminals for breaking the law with citizenship is one of the main draws of them coming in, right? And that's exactly what their plan is. They want millions and millions and millions of criminals to invade the USA, and at some point they want to be able to turn them from the criminal aliens that they are into citizens of the USA. They want to reward them for killing over 200,000 Americans in Joe Biden's time. They want to reward them for committing crimes and then stealing billions and billions of dollars of assistance that is depriving American citizens of the proper assistance that they deserve, right? And the reality is here they want to keep sending billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. And at the same time, 3 months from now, May 11th, about 15 million Americans are going to be stripped of their health insurance in May of this year. This comes after a whole lot of them were injured by human experimentation that amounts to war crimes, right? But 15 million Americans are going to be stripped of their health insurance, and then how many out of these 5.5 million criminal aliens are being put on to health insurance and all of these other assistance programs that they're getting stripped off of, right? So we're sending tons, billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight the invaders of Ukraine, but at home we're spending billions and billions of dollars to assist the invaders of the United States of America. We're spending billions of dollars to supposedly protect the citizens of Ukraine, even though it's only facilitating the continuation of the slaughter and the destruction of the lives and futures of the people in Ukraine. But we are literally spending billions of dollars here in the USA to facilitate the continued wave of criminal aliens and the continued wave of deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans that they are causing directly by being those mules bringing that fentanyl in up through Mexico, right? A large amount of that fentanyl originates in China. It winds up into Mexico, and then as those hordes of criminal aliens mass up in Mexico, as they've come from everywhere else in the world, right? They run those drugs right across our border, right into the bodies of the Americans, and Most Americans are right into the ground, or however else how their families handle their deaths, right? The reality of all this bullshit is that everything going on is Joe Biden's fault, right? It's Joe Biden's war in Ukraine. He's the only, him and the USA regime is the only reason this thing is still going, is the only reason everybody in the world is suffering, and it's Joe Biden's price hikes, right? This is especially true now, right, after it's been revealed by a man who is not a discredited journalist like the articles in the news are trying to say. He's actually Seymour Hersh is actually a top of the line investigative journalist, perhaps one of the best of all times. He's not a discredited journalist. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, right? His stuff is on the money, right? But now that it's become more common knowledge that it's not just the intelligent people of the world who know that Joe Biden and the USA attacked the Nord Stream pipelines. Now it's common knowledge, thanks to Seymour Hersh for putting everything out, right? It's Joe Biden's price hikes. All the natural gas price hikes, oil, energy, all forms of energy price hikes is all directly Joe Biden. All the food inflation, again, is all directly Joe Biden. In the USA especially, right, we are even having serious housing inflation issues because of the 5.5 million criminal aliens coming into the USA to kill Americans, right? They're taking up tons and tons and tons of housing units that otherwise wouldn't be occupied, right? The USA, right? We can't even build housing fast enough to house the amount of criminals that Joe Biden is marching into the USA to kill American citizens in his proxy army, right? And then they consume all of the other goods, the food, the energy, everything else that Joe Biden is causing to spike and go out of control, right? They contribute to it all. All of our healthcare issues, right? Another 5.5 million people is showing up at these emergency rooms, and it's just compounding absolutely everything. But the reality of all of this is, when you look at this, this is fucking completely insane, right? We're worried about 500,000 Russians, but we're not worried about 5.5 million criminal aliens. Some of them are Russians as well, right? If you're worried about Russians, well, they can come into Mexico just like the Chinese are doing, and they can run and come across our border and go anywhere and do anything just the same as any of the Mexicans, the Haitians, the Cubans, the Nicaraguans, the El Salvadorians, the Costa Ricans, the Colombians, the Venezuelans, the Nigerians, you name it, you name it, you name it. They're coming in. All the different Middle East jihadists, right? The border is open. Among those 5.5 million people are also a ton of different terrorists and probably sleeper cells from other nations and whatnot, and they're running around all over the USA wherever they want, as the criminals they are, with their get out of jail free cards that Joe Biden's giving them, right? They're probably looking at our electric stations and substations, power plants, military bases, subway systems, you name it, anything that can be a target of an attack by criminal aliens or foreign agents from other nations. Well, all of it is in danger because Biden is bringing in an absolute army of criminals from all over the world to endanger all Americans in just about every way, right? Any person that wants to come into America to commit acts of terror or sabotage or whatever, Joe Biden has got a goddamn door wide open for them, man. And a lot of people, because of the media, think it's not that big of a deal, but it is an absolutely huge, huge deal. We've already seen how big cities like New York City can be overwhelmed. All of their services meant to help the poor citizens of New York City can immediately be sucked up and not be available for the American citizens by the hordes of these criminal aliens, right? It's just city after city after city and state after state after state, the entire nation. They're just sucking up the ability to help actual American citizens non-stop. You know, you even have Democrats who are almost always pro criminal immigration, right? Saying, "Hey, we need this is a national emergency. We need to stop this shit down. We cannot handle any of this shit." And Biden just keeps them coming and coming and coming and coming and coming, right? Who knows how many fucking terrorists are in their midst? All we know for sure is 100% of every single one of them is already a criminal. They committed a crime coming here, and then they commit tons and tons of other crimes here. And we already know over 200,000 Americans have been killed by this horde of criminal aliens under Joe Biden's watch. Right? So all of this bullshit going on when they say Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine, no, it's Joe Biden's war in Ukraine. When they say Putin's price hikes, no, it is Joe Biden's price hikes. And when they talk about the biggest war and the biggest invasion going on, right? They're going to Ukraine. The biggest war and the biggest invasion going on in the world right now is the United States of America. Do you think that Vladimir Putin would ever be as corrupt and doing as much betrayal to the Russian citizens as to allow 5.5 million criminals within 2 years to invade Russia? They would never allow that. How about in China? You think Xi Jinping would allow 5.5 million criminals to invade China over the course of a 2-year period and to kill hundreds of thousands of Chinese? No, right? Putin would not allow 5.5 million criminals to invade Russia and kill a couple 100,000 Russians, right? They're saying that the Russian casualties, are 140,000, way over, it's way too many, but just their official claim is, 140,000 Russians are dead, and they're celebrating it all in the news, right? More Americans are dead under Joe Biden than there are Russians dead under Vladimir Putin. It's in reality, it's less Americans dead from the criminal alien army that's invading America than Ukrainians dead because they lie about absolutely everything in Ukraine. The total corruption in every way. Everything said coming from any source in Ukraine is just fucking completely worthless because it's that corrupted and that much fucking lying. But their official claims of less than 20,000 would be over 10 times as many Americans are killed under Joe Biden than the official corrupted false claims of Ukraine is the amount of Ukrainians killed under Zelensky, right? That's the fucking deal here. And of course, everybody's just accepting that it's normal that all right, well, the COVID bullshit is going to be ended, and yeah, here's your warning. 15 million of you're going to be dumped off of fucking your health care. And we're not talking about any billions or any type of funding to stop you 15 million from being knocked off of your health care in May. And we're going to make sure that we also provide health care to five, over 5.5 million criminal aliens. Really, there's 14 to 15 million criminal aliens in the USA right now. So 15 million actual United States citizens are going to be cut off of health care, while those 14, 15 million criminal aliens are going to be provided all of those services instead of the actual citizens of America. The actual law-abiding citizens are going to lose their health care, where the same amount of criminal aliens are going to be provided all kinds of services through our healthcare system. The spending is going to be zero for American citizens' healthcare, and it's the same amount is going to be spent basically on the horde of Joe Biden's horde of criminal aliens, right? And they're also going to find, no matter what it takes, they're going to find billions and billions and billions and billions more for the Ukraine bullshit. And they're going to find billions and billions more for all of their other weirdo liberal left-wing bullshit that they got, right? But they're not going to find any money for these Americans getting cut off of health care, right? See, in our budget, we've got a ton of money. There should be no excuse. There should be no actual American citizens that live without health care or anything, right? And even in Russia here, where sanctions terrorism is attacking Russia, but also attacking all Western citizens. Every nation involved in the sanctions is attacking their own citizens, causing energy and food inflation for their own citizens, right? The Russian budget and everything is under pressure, and they're having to produce military supplies on like a war footing, right? They're producing way more than the entire West is actually producing, right? But they're still funding all of the pensions and healthcare and stuff of the people in Russia. Putin is managing to not cut 15 million Russian citizens off of healthcare. Biden's the one that's going to be cutting 15 million American citizens off of healthcare. Just like that, Putin's going through all of this trouble that Biden is causing, and Biden causing trouble for Putin is causing trouble for all of the citizens of Russia and all of the citizens of the West, right? But they're actually managing to fund all of the things that they have going, their pensions, their health care. They're not cutting them off, right? And of course, we're not going to be cutting off the welfare to Ukraine or the welfare to any of the other states all around the world that we pump up, but we're going to cut off 15 million American citizens, right? So that's the fucking reality of this thing here, right? It's Joe Biden's war in Ukraine, and it's Joe Biden's war in America. America is being invaded, and it is Joe Biden's price hikes, and it is Joe Biden's inflation. And all of this shit only has one answer, right? And that is the people of America need to rally together to get the rogue regime of Joe Biden to stop these attacks of America, stop these attacks on Russia, stop the attacks on NATO, on Germany, stop the environmental terrorism, stop the economic terrorism, and stop the fucking constant lying and propaganda out of the government and the news organization, right? It is the duty of the people of the United States to stand up and stop what is going on. And whatever that takes is what it takes, right? What we need is real country-wide protests demanding that Joe Biden ends the war on America and that Joe Biden ends his war on Ukraine. Right? And we need the people in the other Western nations to get up and do the same. The people in Canada are under attack as well. The people of Europe are all under attack as well. Right? There is not one major concern about the war in Ukraine that trumps all of the other attacks and acts of war going on everywhere else that are all caused by the very same people, right? And they did it all starting with their COVID measures. They've never stopped since then. It's been one nonstop war, tons of war crimes, tons of terrorism, tons of bullshit. But that's the reality of the deal here, right? 11 times more criminal aliens have invaded the United States under Joe Biden than the amount of Russians that they claim is invading Ukraine, even though it's not, right? All of the Russians right now are all in Russia. None of them are in Ukraine, right? So really it's 5.5 million criminal aliens invaded the United States, and 0 Russians have invaded, and 0 Russians are occupying a single inch of Ukraine, because it's not Ukraine. So I just want to put this video out here kind of talking about this fucking complete idiocracy that is going on in terms of America and America's support for this war in Ukraine, right? It's time to end all support for the war in Ukraine, and it's also time to end all support for Joe Biden's war on America. The reality is, if these attacks continue much longer, right, Joe Biden's proxy army of criminal aliens is going to collapse everything, because we cannot sustain 2.75 million criminals invading the United States year after year, like's been happening since Joe Biden took office. We cannot survive this invasion. We need to take care of our own citizens and our own interests and our own borders, and we got to get rid of all of the criminals that Joe Biden has imported into the USA to destroy the lives and actually take hundreds of thousands of American citizens' lives, which is what they have done. So with that said, please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you think that's something you should do, and have a nice day.